Brighton are definitely back, and maybe not in the best way we could have imagined. Welcome back to Seagulls Central. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. My name is Adam MacDonald, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you very, very much for clicking on this video. Right, let's get straight into it. Brighton played their first game of the 2025-2026 Premier League season on Saturday against Fulham, and I don't know, I think we've come away from it feeling really gutted, I think is the emotion. Really bitterly disappointed. Angry, frustrated, pleased in the same breath. I think there's obviously been a lot to feel positive about, but I think there's also the way it ended is just so disappointing. And I think it's one of those ones where we all kind of felt that it might be coming. We saw it a lot of times last season. You know, Brighton getting leads, not being able to hang on to them, choking in the kind of final moments, maybe game management being a little bit poor. And we saw it again against Fulham. Look, overall, a decent point, and I don't think we're going to be able to, you can't really say at this stage of the season whether something's a massive loss, a huge waste of points, or we've dropped points or anything, but I think just in the context of the game, the fact that it was in our hands, really disappointing. And I think I kind of left the game. It's just that sinking feeling, isn't it? Like towards the end of the game when you're watching, you're like, you've got a 1-0 lead. You're desperate to hang on to it. The whole stadium's like sitting on their hands, trying to just like keep in all their nerves. And it's that moment when you just watch the away end erupt and go mental, and you're praying, you're like looking at the ref like, is there VAR, anything, and it's that horrible sinking feeling. But I think it's, sadly it's one that we've become a little bit maybe too familiar with this Brighton side in the last year or so, and maybe we'll get onto that in another video, or maybe later in this video. But let's get into the game itself. So in terms of the 11 that Brighton put out, it was actually very similar to what we predicted on this video a few days ago. The only difference was what we kind of, I made my choice, which would have been Danny Welbeck up front and Rutter in behind. But we made the prediction, didn't we, that obviously he was going to start Matt O'Reilly at the number 10 with Georginio Rutter as the number 9. And that's what we saw. The classic kind of lineup: De Cuyper left back, Weaver at right back, two centre-halves, Jan-Paul van Hecker and Lewis Dunk, and then Ayari and Belaber. Belaber obviously coming in for his first start in a few weeks after having not really featured much in pre-season. Minteh on the right, Mitoma on the left, O'Reilly in behind, Georginio Rutter. And to be honest, I think for the most part, Brighton played very well. I think they looked a decent attacking side. It was a very lively game, particularly in the first half, despite it being 0-0 at half-time. It was a very eventful game. Fulham were getting forward a lot. They were attacking very well. Brighton were attacking very well. We had a number of chances. You think in that first half when Yankuba Minteh put the ball into the net, it got ruled out because Carlos Belaber had kind of gone beyond the byline. A fantastic move. There was a move before that. I think, was it in the build-up to that kind of goal, or was it... It was before that where there was a brilliant moment in midfield where Belaber and Weaver and Ayari all linked up really nicely. The ball was then switched out over to the left. De Cuyper and Mitoma were linking up really well. There's so many positives, and maybe we do start with the positives. I think one of the first positives I want to talk about is Matt Weaver. I thought he put in a really solid, strong performance, and we're seeing him really grow in that right-back role. You think about when we watched him this time a year ago, come into the Brighton side. It would have been away at Everton last year, but then I remember really seeing him looking like this at the AMEX, where, as I said before, he looked nervous, he looked shaky, he looked a bit sketchy at times. He didn't look like a comfortable player in the Premier League. We're seeing a right-back now, an assured, technical, graceful, strong player with fantastic awareness. All of his actions are so clean. There was a moment, I just thought he did really well. And I think our worry, and one of the worries that I know that I'd spoken about, and some of you guys in the comments had also spoken about, was around whether he would be able to cut it against kind of Premier League opposition, Premier League left-backs. I think the left-hand side against Fulham was a very strong left-hand side that he had to deal with. Calvin Bassey, Alex Iwobi linking up on that left-hand side. Two absolute units, players with pace and power, and I thought he dealt with them really well, obviously with the support of Minteh, with the support of Baleba, but there were multiple occasions where he was having to go one-on-one with players, he was having to back up into the box, and he dealt with things really well. I remember there was a moment where a ball was coming in behind and he was running back onto it, headed it kind of back into play to Van Hecke really well. There was a really nice kind of interception he made with the kind of, where it was kind of coming in from behind him, which I just thought was really, I just thought we saw a player who looked really, really good. And yes, okay, I think what you lose is that attacking right back, which maybe one day a Kadioglu might be able to step up into, or what we've traditionally maybe seen in the past with your Brunos or even your Lampteys to an extent. But he's in that kind of Veltman mould of a very assured player, and I do really like him. I think we're going to see him there for a while. Obviously, we saw like Kadioglu come on in the second half, didn't really do much to kind of stake a claim. He was playing right wing, then left wing, so it was a bit of a different position. But he didn't really do much, I would say, to stake a claim in the starting 11. So I think we'll see probably Matt Cuyper kind of in the next game against Everton going forward. I think he put in a really strong performance. I think it's really positive. I thought Minteh looked good as well. I know he obviously got brought off on around 68, 69 minutes, put in a really good shift. Could have been much more clinical. You think of that chance in the second half down in front of the North Stand where, that you talk about the chances that Brighton had to wrap things up. That was one of them, wasn't it? That Minteh chance in the second half where we'd already gone 1-0 up and you have, so there was I think Lewis Dunk had a chance for a corner. We had the Minteh shot. We had a moment where Diego Gomez kind of beat Bert Leno to the ball when it dropped in the air. Obviously, it did end up going for a foul, but kind of that was a moment where we essentially missed out on the goal. Brian Gruder shot across the goal line. No one really got onto it, and I don't know if it was a shot or a cross really. But we had a lot of opportunities where we were making the most of kind of Fulham's mistakes, but also we were kind of creating nice flashes ourselves. But we weren't able to get that second goal, that cushion, and it really felt like one of those games because of how open it was. It was a game where, yeah, we were attacking really well, but actually Fulham looked very good. Very good. So we needed that second goal to get us over the line. And I think I'm disappointed in the sense that we've thrown away 2 points literally in the 95th minute out of 96 minutes of a game. However, and I don't know whether this makes it better or worse, but it felt like a game which we had deserved to draw, but we were winning, which is why it would have been such a sweet win. It would have felt like such a massive win. And I think the fact that obviously you feel like you probably deserve a draw, you've got this win, but then last minute you lose it. It's just a bit of a reality check, isn't it? And it's it's the agony of kind of feeling like you were about to get something that maybe didn't quite deserve, would have been a bit lucky to get, but you've kind of fought well, you've dug in, you've overall done well. You probably, the manager was come out and say you'd been the better team, but you probably know that you had to ride your luck at times, and it would have been a really good win. And it's just a real shame that we weren't able to get it over the line. What does it speak to? I think maybe it speaks to that lack of game management. One thing I will say though is I think in terms of what we could have done, I think Hürzeler made all of the, I'm not going to say right substitutions, but there was nothing out of the ordinary that I think he did in terms of substitutions. Baleba obviously having basically no pre-season, played 70 minutes, 75 minutes, played most of the game, obviously had to be brought off. So he was changed for Gomez. We obviously saw Kadioglu come on for Minteh, who looked a bit tired and kind of had a bit of a frustrating day at the office. That felt like a natural change. We saw Gruder come on as well as a classic change. Milner kind of coming on to support, clearly to try and shore things up a little bit. So, maybe we could have really shorn things up. Maybe, shorn things up, not a word. We could have maybe brought on your Coppolas, your Bascaglis, or we could have, really sat in. I do just think our game management at times, whilst it was kind of fine and we did the right substitutions, there were moments in that second half, in the kind of last 10 minutes, even the last 5 minutes, where I was just shouting, just like, keep the ball. The amount of times, we'd be under the cosh. Fulham would naturally, as they're pressing in the final stages, peppering it around our box, we'd win it back. We'd lump it up. And I know what you're trying to do in those moments. You're trying to get a counter-attack. And so many times it works, doesn't it? You commit some attacking, quick players forward when Fulham have committed everyone forward themselves. And you can kind of get that all-important second goal and seal the game up. And it can go either way. But it felt like all we needed to do was just be a little bit smarter, a little bit cuter with it. We need to just keep the ball. We need to tick it over. We need to not lose possession. We need to not give away set pieces, corners. And ultimately, and it's a shame really because I think in that game we looked fairly decent from set pieces. You think of the attacking set pieces we had, pretty much all of them created opportunities. Their set pieces, the ones that we were defending, all of them apart from that last one came to nothing, and I felt we dealt with them very well. And I was thinking to myself, God, this new set piece geezer who's popping up on the touchline every 2 minutes, but that we have a set piece. He might be the man. Now there's talk on social media about him being on like serious fraud watch. It's obviously harsh, but looking back at the goal, it was a bit of a shame. It takes a nick off dunk, and then there's no one on either post, and it is a bit poor. I'm going to, try to say something profound about it. I think it's difficult because I think it's something that we've struggled with last season. We've struggled with even really the season before. And, Fabian Hürzeler was actually questioned on it in the fans forum, where I know a fan said kind of, I think we've been a team who's been a bit inconsistent. And obviously we had those results at Wolves last season and against Leicester, etc., where we've kind of thrown away leads. And he gave his answer, Hürzeler, but then Paul Barber actually kind of chimed in and said, no, actually, I will say that we've been very consistent. We've been very good. And actually, we got this amount of wins, this amount of draws, and that would show that he's doing a brilliant job. Obviously, fair enough, he's standing up for his head coach. But I think it did negate a legitimate point, which is maybe it's not one about consistency. It's more about game management and maybe throwing away points from a winning position. But it's something that we're doing, and it's something that, I'll be honest, I felt very confident in this game that we would get over the line. Yes, it got a bit hairy, but from what I'd seen, it felt like we were defending well, we were managing it well, and every time these things happen, I feel like you end up just going, it's just unlucky. Like that Wolves game in the AMEX last season where we lose it in the middle of the park and they break and score. It's kind of just unlucky. Like, what am I being too surface level? Like, am I a Philistine? What can you do? Tell me how. Yeah, you can manage the game better. My view would be you've got to try and keep possession better. You've got to try and keep onto the ball, not give it away, not make it as hard for yourself. That's my personal view on how you kind of, see these games out. And I wouldn't say there were any glaring substitutions that he should have made, to be honest. I'll talk some more of the positives. I think Maxim De Cuyper played really well. That was, I'd say, to be honest, I know Jan-Paul van Hekke got the sponsors man of the match in the stadium, but I thought Maxim De Cuyper looked brilliant. I use the same words about him every week. Energetic, real tenacity to the way he plays. Technically brilliant. The way he can ping the ball is fantastic. We saw this a couple of times today. The way he fizzes the ball into players really quickly. What it does is it means that when players receive the ball, they're not having to take a touch and play. When they're anticipating a really fast ball coming in from someone like De Cuyper, they immediately just like one touch pop it off to another player, and it helps us move quicker, get our tempo up, build the play. And I really like how he's very quick with his passing. He's very quick generally. He can absolutely ping it across the pitch to within an inch, to like absolutely perfect. A few times he did that from left to right, out to Minteh on the right-hand side. Obviously, getting in the box, overlapping with Mitoma. I think that combination, him and Mitoma, are going to be very, very good. Mitoma was decent. I thought he was fairly quiet. But I thought overall, everyone was pretty good. Baleba coming back, I thought he was very good off the ball. I think on the ball, he did look a little bit rusty. He looked like he, there were a few passes where he made a few mistakes. And it was a bit sloppy. There was a moment where he gave the ball back to Fulham in the first half, in their midfield, and they had a bit of a transitional moment. But I thought everyone played well. The one thing I will say, and I do want to kind of have this conversation, and I'll definitely have it in another video as well. But I'll be honest, I'm very pleased for Matt O'Reilly that he got his goal. I think he deserves it. I think he's played fairly well. I will say I don't like him in the number 10. I don't know how you feel. I don't know if I'm reading this completely different to you. I do much prefer Georginio Rutter in that number 10 and a Danny Welbeck as the number 9. I think that combination works much better. I think it works much better for Georginio Rutter. But also, I'll be honest, I feel like I'm not seeing it with Matt O'Reilly. And I feel a bit bad almost for saying it, because I'm not at all writing the guy off. You can kind of tell from the way he plays that he's a decent player. And technically, he's obviously very good, and he did very well to take the goal in the way he did. But I'll be honest with you, I watch him, I watched him in this game, and I really did feel like he, compared to some of the link-up we have up front, when you got Georginio Rutter in the 10 and Welbeck in the 9, I think we're a lot more fast-paced. I think we're a lot more energetic. We're a lot more dynamic. We're a lot more direct. I think Matt O'Reilly lacks, and I think maybe this is a getting up to speed with the Premier League thing, I think he lacks that ability to play one-touch football perfectly in the way that you can see players like Gruder, Rutter, obviously João Pedro in the past, Mitoma. Often with O'Reilly, he's receiving the ball, he's taking like a touch, another touch, popping it off, and there's lots of kind of big movements with him where he's turning and twisting. And I just want to see him be a bit sharper and quicker with his tempo. And I do feel like he sometimes slows attacks down a little bit. And look, that's my criticism, and I'm not going to say any more criticism, but I obviously think he's a good player. I'm just not sure. I feel like there's been so much talk around he's had a brilliant pre-season. I feel like I'm kind of not really seeing it. I'm not saying I think he's been crap. I just think he's been fine. He's just been a player. He's looked okay. Yeah, he scored a couple of nice goals in pre-season. I wouldn't say I've watched him in that 10 and thought, this guy. And same with the kind of reports with him going to Serie A. I really want him to see, I want to see the best of him. So I want to see him this season, Brian. I want to see him start games. I want to see him involved in our squad this season. We're going to need him, and I think he's a very good player. We must keep Matt O'Reilly, I keep seeing on social media. What have we seen to kind of suggest that? I don't know. Tell me if I'm living on a different planet. I feel like in this game against Fulham, I did just feel it didn't really work. And yes, he got his goal. But I don't know whether it's just because maybe Danny Welbeck's not fully fit yet. I think we look a lot better with Georginio as a 10 and Rutter and Welbeck as a 9. But, we shall see. I think it's really disappointing because actually I think our next few games are going to be quite difficult. I think next week at Everton's going to be a tough game. I'll be there. Got a ticket for Goodison. I think that for Goodison, what am I on about? For Hill Dickinson, which, by the way, I got a little memo the other day from Everton where it said that they wanted to be referred to as Hill Dickinson Stadium, not the Hill Dickinson Stadium or the Hill Dickinson or HD. There were a list of 10 names they didn't want it to be called. It's not called the Hill Dickinson, it's just Hill Dickinson. So I'll be at Hill Dickinson Stadium next week watching that. I think it's going to be a tough game. Grealish and Dye, the fans getting up for it, their first game at home. I think that's going to be a really tough game. Look, I always back Brighton. I think we've got a brilliant squad, a really, really good, really strong squad. But that game's going to be tough. The week after, Man City at the AMEX. We all know in the past how tough that game's been. Okay, to be fair, O'Reilly with the result last time of all people, considering what I've just been saying. So maybe, look, maybe we will do well in these next 2 games, but you just think this would have been a fantastic opportunity to start the season with 3 points in the bag and just get underway, nicely and get that momentum going. And particularly when you go 1-0 up and you get the penalty and you play quite well. And I think, as I said earlier, it's kind of more frustrating because Fulham also played well, and it kind of felt like, we've kind of, we've got our noses in front. We've got ourselves an advantage. And look, we don't really know how the season's going to play out. We've seen teams like Sunderland, batter West Ham, and it's kind of a real shock. So you don't know kind of what the context of the season is going to be and whether this, points-wise against Fulham, not taking the maximum points off them will actually matter, whether it will really matter, kind of where the lay of the land's going to be, going into the, let's say this time in kind of 6, 7, 8 months' time, how things will look. But I think for Hürzeler, there's not too much to worry about. It sounded like in his post-match press conference, he wasn't He actually sounded quite chipper, I thought. Chippy, upbeat. I don't think he seems to, maybe he was trying to cover it up. Maybe he was trying to kind of put on a brave face, mask it a bit. But I thought he seemed fairly relaxed. He seemed upbeat. It's not the end of the world, but I think some fans will be rightly kind of questioning whether this is an acceptable kind of continuation of a trend that we've seen before, which is kind of not being able to hold on to leads. And what does it say about us? And are we not learning? Are we not good enough at set pieces? Yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. As always, if you've got this far in the video and you've enjoyed it, thank you. I appreciate that. And if you haven't already to this channel, please hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on, hit a like on the video, get in the comments and let me know, were you at the game? What did you think? Do you think Brighton are making a habit of this? Did you expect this to happen? Do you think it's one of those things where at this point of the season we can even really put too much emphasis on a moment like that? Is it just something that we're just going to have to put behind us? What was your feeling when that goal went in? Did your stomach sink like it did for me? Let me know your experience of this game and what you think went well for Brighton, what we did wrong, what Hürzeler maybe got right or got wrong, and kind of where you think we are going into the next few games. Do we need more? Do we need to sign more? How are we looking for the squad? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. And I love to read them. I love to get back to as many as I can. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in a couple of days for another video, no doubt, to dissect whatever else we've got to talk about. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. And as always, up the Albion.